Oh hi. Port Royal. From 1656 to 1661 I carried the name Cape Caggie, or simply Caggie. The city on the island of Jamaica, the capital of the English colony of the same name from 1656 to 1692. Now the city will be left inhabitants and it is almost completely flooded with the Caribbean Sea. This city is located on the southern coast of Jamaica, on the western end of a long and narrow spit of palisadoes which is the southern border of the harbour Kingston. In the Gulf Port Royal in excess number there are reefs and sandy shallows. In the past Port Royal had a complicated navigation on the Gulf, but favoured to defence of the island from the sea. The convenient location of the spit palisadoes in the defensive plan became the basis for a bookmark and construction on it by 1692. In close proximity to Port Royal, 5 stone forts intended for defense of the city and blocking of an entrance to the passage Port Royal. The Fort Charles, the main defensive works, remained in original form. Now the museum is located there. The Fort Walker is on the bank of the island, near the Fort Charles. The Fort Rupert now is flooded, but sometimes he appears from water. The Fort James now is flooded, located on the coast. The Fort Carlisle is located near the Fort James, is also flooded. Basis history. The city, fort of Caggie, future Port Royal, was founded by Spaniards in 1518 and 30 kilometers from the former Spanish capital of the island, the city Santiago de la Vega. The Port Royal was the center of sea trade in the Caribbean Sea up to the second half of the 17th century. After capture by British at Spaniards of Jamaica in 1655, during an era of protectorate of Cromwell, the Port Royal was chosen as the capital. The Port Royal had the deep and capacious harbour depth at quays in 9.15 meters. Thus, the harbour Port Royal could accept even the largest 100-gun linear ships. In the city by 1692 was available several churches, 4 daily trading market, a Sephardic synagogue, a Catholic chapel, a house of worship of Quakers, royal warehouses, extensive warehouse, more than 100 taverns, the menagerie, military parade grounds and bridges and so on. Population. In 1659 in the city there were 200 houses and shops. By 1670 the population of the city together with the nearby town Santiago de la Vega already exceeded 3,300 people, and the qualification of 1680 revealed that about 4,100 people, including 286 white, 845 blacks and also about 1,200 pirates lived in the capital of Jamaica. By 1692 the population of the city, by different calculations made from 6,500 to 1,000 people. At the same time it must be kept in mind that the general population of Jamaica in 1670 hardly exceeded 17,000 inhabitants. Economy. The Port Royal was the only port in Jamaica, and all products going for export to the mother country, England, were taken out only through him. In 1688 the Port Royal port was visited by 213 ships with the general displacement of 11317 tons. Same year to Bridgetown, the capital of Barbados, there arrived only 102 ships, and in all ports of New England combined, only 226 ships. That testifies to what huge role was played by Port Royal in colonial trade of England eras of the last century. From Port Royal, mainly the products of the Jamaican plantations were taken up. Sugar, treacle, rum, indigo, cocoa, fruit. In 1689-1691 the average cost of the export goods which are annually taken out from Port Royal averaged £100. The big scope in Port Royal and its vicinities was reached by illicit trade. The African slaves were her main subject, and it was conducted mainly between separate piracy teams and the Spanish dealers. According to one naval officer serving in Jamaica in 1679, the volume of illicit trade only in 6 months was £2,000. Piracy capital. In 1654, Oliver Cromwell charged to the Admiral William Penn and the General Robert Venables to provide two British basic base in the Caribbean region. His advisor, the Dominican renegade Thomas Gage, who before was the missionary in West Indies, claimed that the Spanish colonies in Cuba and Hispaniola are badly protected. The expedition from 18 fighting ships and 20 transports went from Portsmouth in day of Christmas of 1654 and recruited additional recruits at a stop in Barbados. Having failed, despite a superiority in strength, an attack on Santo Domingo because of bad combat readiness of hastily gathered and equipped army, on May 11, 1655 the expedition landed in Jamaica in the place of modern Port Kingston. Then not numerous Spanish garrison Santiago de la Vega gave in without a fight. However, because of Venabaz's delay with development of terms of surrender, a great number of Spaniards managed to release the cattle, to release slaves, and to run away with values to Cuba. Slaves having taken refuge in mountains, Marunum began to be called and disturbed British the attacks and in the 18th century. The Port Royal represented the safe harbor both for honest dealers and for the pirates controlling maritime routes between Spain and Panama. The Port Royal was attractive to pirates for several reasons. Its proximity to tradeways gave to pirates easy access to production, but the proximity to not numerous safe maritime routes going to Spain from the Atlantic Ocean was the most important advantage. The harbor was rather big, not only for placement of vessels, but also, if necessary, for careenage and repair. The island was also ideal for attacks on the Spanish settlements. From Port Royal, Henry Morgan attacked Panama, Portobello and Maracaibo. Such famous people as Roche Brasiliano, Sean Davies, pirate, and Edward Mansfield also chose Port Royal as the base. Earthquake of 1692. The event in the afternoon on June 7, 1692 at 11 hours 43 minutes, the strongest earthquake, completely flooded 2/3 squares of the city. 13 acres of the city earth together with houses were washed simply away in the sea. 13 more were flooded with the arisen tsunami. 2/3 residents. In total about 100 people were the victims of an earthquake. In the harbor Port Royal about 50 ships and vessels sank, 1,800 city buildings were destroyed. The Perdido Don M. Lechon Swan frigate of construction of 1673 was the only military ship which appeared at the time of an earthquake in the harbor Port Royal and the dead in it ashore. As a result of an earthquake, the Port Royal was almost completely destroyed, and the English colonial administration was forced to transfer the capital of the island of Jamaica to the small village of Kingston on the opposite northern coast of the Gulf. Port Royal. Despite destructions, Port Royal nevertheless it was built up anew. In 1703, only 11 years later after an earthquake of 1692, in the city there was a strong fire which destroyed the city again. Several strong hurricanes which followed that and the next 3-day fire in 1728 destroyed the city finally, so all his remained population was forced to move from Port Royal. Now the considerable part of the city is flooded as a result of the landslide processes caused by an earthquake which occurred on June 7, 1692. An average depth of the remains of houses and other buildings -15 meters. During the detailed researches Port Royal, it was revealed 2 buildings with the remained walls and apertures of doors subsequently collapsed because of washout of ground deposits. 400 pipes, a set of bottles and fragments of ceramics, and also keel of the well-known Swan frigate which sank together with the city that ill-fated day. There are plans of the organization of trips to the place of old accident by specialized boats with a glass bottom. Port Royal in literature. In the novel by Raphael Sabatini, An Odyssey of the Captain Blood, some events take place in Jamaica, in Port Royal. At the end of the novel, the main protagonist becomes the governor of Jamaica. Port Royal in cinema. In Port Royal there is an action of a series of movies, Pirates of the Caribbean Sea. Also it is the hometown for several main characters. Port Royal in animation. Heroes of the Soviet animated film stories by the Old Seaman in his second series under the name Desert Island, as a result of a time travel get to Port Royal. Having appeared in captivity at pirates, the old captain with friends decided to make escape, knowing about the future most powerful earthquake on June 7, 1692, which razed the capital of pirates to the ground. Port Royal in music. The known speed metal Running Wild in 1988 published an album with the name of the same name, Port Royal. Port Royal, the Italian rock group playing mix of electronic music and post-rock. Blazonstone has an album with the name Return to Port Royal. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.